Hello, Matteo. I did a full test without actually plugging in the output cable. So test 1 2 test 1 2.
Test 1 2 1 2.
Yep, Cade's going now.
Hello, test 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2.
Test 1 2. Summer Street, Knight Stadium.
Ross Archibald, Willem Lejeune, Cooper Half.
Okay, sure. Need a little bit affects my lower, and Cade's all good. That's what I'm hearing.
That's good.
Okay, beautiful. Awesome. No worries. Just text me if you need anything during the game. I knew it. Anyway, all good. All right. Speak to you soon.
It was part of the club leadership structure we saw success on the park in the 1979 Dublin Cup and the 1980 World Cup final. While serving as vice president in 1980 under then club president Ivan Martin and Pavlovic swapped roles for the 1981 season, which saw Pavlovic become president of the club. Under Pavlovic's presidency, the club bought its first property right then with a view to develop the property into the club's home base. Ivan loved the club and supported it always, and more recently he was instrumental in the club's philanthropic endeavours. On behalf of Melbourne, Croatia Soccer Club and the Melbourne Knights Football Club, we are forever grateful for your contribution and passion.
A minute's silence observed respectfully here at Knights Stadium in honour of the recently passed former Melbourne Knights president Ivan Pavlovic, a long-time president who oversaw league and cup success in the 1980 Ampol Cup and 1979 Doherty Cup. He moved into a vice president role as well, but above all else was a massive supporter of the Melbourne Knights, and we pay our respects to an influential figure in the Melbourne, Croatia community, and how he would have loved games like these. Friday Night Lights at Knights Stadium, the 115th instalment of the original Melbourne derby between South Melbourne and tonight's hosts, Melbourne Knights. And a clash that has seen blood shed, silverware shared, plenty of drama over national and state league meetings. But tonight, it's a bit of a different significance, as it could be the last time for some time that we see these two sides go head-to-head, two old enemies in an actual state-based competition, with South Melbourne's national second-tier future looming large on the horizon. They're hoping to see off the old enemy in state football with a big win that would keep them top of the table, while for Melbourne Knights hoping to keep the promising start to life under recently permanently announced head coach Ivan Franjic going. They've got 4 points and 6 goals from the first 2 games of his tenure, and he hasn't been part of a victorious Melbourne Knights side against South Melbourne since, I think, 2008. So hoping to reset the ledger, not just as a player, but for a coach as the first time. An absolute cracker in prospect here in Sunshine. Always a good clash when these two sides come together for history, football on the pitch, and for the fans in the stands. We're really looking forward to it here on NPL Victoria YouTube. Thank you for your company. Lockie Flanagan here in the, well, resplendent by NPL standards commentary box at Knights Stadium by Cade Lucas. Hello, Cade. What a game we've got in prospect tonight.
Good evening, Lockie. Good evening, viewers. Yes, it is a wonderful occasion, as it always is, and you mentioned it could have some history involved too, possibly the last time, so Knights would be keen to have one for the road here as South go forward early. Of course, the teams in their traditional lineup, in their traditional kits, with South all in blue, going towards the left of your screen, or the south of the stadium here, the car park end, club rooms end, and Knights in red with white shorts, blue socks, going towards the north of the stadium or the scoreboard end. Go through the lineups quickly as the teams just feel each other out in these early exchanges. Knights, the big change is Tommy Semi not in the starting lineup. He sits on the bench, the Papua New Guinean international, but even Franjic, the coach, he's a playing coach, he's out there. And so too is Ben Carrigan, Corey Sewell, Anthony Dazelle, Mitch Hoare, both in midfield. Kieran Bramwell, the leading scorer. Gian Albano, who scored a famous winner in this fixture a few years ago. Chris Oldfield in goal. Thomas Werndl down back along with Joe Frandic and Saif Edin Saki. And it looks like it's Saki who's sent the ball out of play right below us here. And it's an early throw to the visitors. Jordan Lampard in defence. Javier Lopez between the sticks for the visitors. Jake Marshall and ever-present at the back. Mario Barcia in midfield alongside Ross Archibald, who's back in the starting lineup after missing out against St Albans. Cooper Halfpenny, Emil Payos, Morgan Evans, Nahul Bernarda, who scored twice last week, Jack Painter-Andrews and George Sitsinaris, whilst Harry Sawyer misses out with, I think, 6 yellow cards. So he is out of the starting lineup. But Sitsinaris, who scored the 4th of St Albans goals last weekend, is in, the youngster. And going by his cameo against Dynamo, he is one worth watching. So, not much to report here after the first 2 minutes or so. Chris Oldfield with a long hoof downfield. Back the other way, and here is the coach and the captain. He might be the boot stutter and the kit man too, even Frandic. And it's out of play right below us. And it will be even Frandic who will throw it in. What's a very cool night here at Summer Street. Certainly the coolest night of the season so far. Winter, whilst not officially here, is certainly in the offing. Good crowd here as expected, and they're all rugged up. First touch here for Javier Lopez in the South Melbourne goal. Of course, these two teams kicked off the season back when the weather was much warmer, and it was South who won on that occasion by 1-0 at Lakeside. They'll be hoping to return the dose here and go 6 points clear at the top of the table ahead of Heidelberg and Avondale playing tomorrow.
Well, and it's a good thing, Cade, that relative to when you called them last week, South have been a little bit more lenient, kind to you this week, giving you a full time to actually read out the starting 11s and go through the introductory remarks, because they had the ball in the back of the net after, well, St Albans, had the ball in the back of the net after, 12 seconds last week at Churchill Reserve?
12, 14, 16. I've heard differing reports. It was very, very quick. Thankfully, me and Kate Lambeski in the commentary position weren't caught out like the South defence were.
Not that it mattered too much in the end, I suppose.
It was a terrific goal too, because it happened so quickly. We glossed over the fact there was a terrific strike by Alan Harris. It was all one-way traffic after that, though.
There were a couple of good goals in that fixture. George Sitsinaris' first for South Melbourne. It's always a good moment when you score your first like that. It's especially impressive. As South looking to get another fast start here. That's a teasing cross into the middle, and Bernarda should have made it 1-0 inside the opening 5 minutes. Sitsinaris put it on a platter. Chris Oldfield with just a hair of misjudgment, misalignment as he looked to punch away the cross, and Noel Bernarda usually would gobble a chance like that up, but unbelievably, it's wide of the target.
Well, you were just mentioning his name, Lockie, and as soon as you said his name, up he bobbed and delivered a wonderful ball. It probably came a bit too quickly for Bernarda. You'd normally expect to put those away, but certainly that's something we're probably going to see a bit more of tonight. Sitsinaris down the flanks. They don't have the big presence of Harry Sawyer in the middle of the box tonight, but Sitsinaris should certainly prove to be a handful down the far side flank, down the right-hand flank for South this evening.
Well, that's the really interesting element, not just for South, but for Melbourne Knights this evening. Harrison Sawyer, not a suspension. He is there on the bench alongside Max Mikula, two of their leading lights. Esteban Quintas elects to drop them for what traditionally, in historical terms, is a massive game. And you kind of wonder, Kate, if maybe, just maybe, the Argentine manager has got one eye on the massive cup fixture that looms on Tuesday night against Preston Lions. But we've only seen them play without Sawyer just the once this season. It didn't bother them too much that time, but they do lose a lot when he's not in the side. Just for the aerial presence, if nothing else. The goal scoring is certainly a big impact too, though.
And also Mikola with the deliveries by hand usually.
That's a great point.
Led to a couple last week. He did cop a knock in that game last week and was a second half substitute, so that may have factored into things. Yes, I thought it might be the accumulation of yellow cards. I think he's the second highest on the table for yellow cards this season with 6, Harrison Sawyer, but yes, he's on the bench tonight, so a few big names on the bench. Tommy Semi, of course, missing out for Knights, which isn't normally the case, but not much has really occurred so far through almost 7 minutes. South have certainly had that one chance through Bernarda, but now they're happy to drop into a defensive block here as Knights try and tease their way through. And it's back to Joe Frangic in defence. Now a long ball by Werndl, the former Altona Magic skipper, and it comes out to Saki, the Frenchman. This is dangerous for South. It's right across the face of goal. And it hasn't got out of play, in fact, and Melbourne Knights will be happy to make the most of it. Looking for a fast start here against their more fancied opponents. Sewell. And it's knocked away by Morgan Evans. And the visitors will look to get away. Now Lampard sends that high into the night sky. It lands just below us here and out of play. Michael Mammis, the referee this evening, after what can sometimes be a tempestuous fixture. And here's Joe Frangic bursting into the area. They're on here again, Knights. And the South defence just looking a bit unconvincing at the moment. They get some breathing space momentarily, but the men in red have got some numbers on the halfway line. It's Duzel who's in the starting lineup, out towards Werndl. Good bit of early pressure here by Knights. Coming off a draw last week against Green Gully. Here's Duzel once more. And for even Frangic now. Lampard to try and mop up the former Green Gully man. For the second time in a row, he sends it out of play right below us, but it is a South throw.
Be really fascinated to observe the, I guess, chopping and changing in parts of this lineup since Ivan Franjic has taken over. And of course, a bit of a disappointing, I guess, in some respects, 3-3 draw last week, having been 3-1 up against Green Gully. But considering at the tail end of Ben Suri's departure, they'd gone 3 games without finding the back of the net. To do it 3 times in 1 game, I'm sure would have been rather rewarding. But one of the things that has changed up is that Anthony Duzel has now started 3 consecutive games in midfield. He hadn't featured in the starting lineup for 8 weeks prior under Ben Suri. This is a good little patch though from the Knights. Saki had a dangerous cross earlier that somehow managed to not leave the field of play. This time elects to go short. Now the cross will come in. It's decently shaped, but prodded away at the first time of asking by the South defence. Werndl can bring that one down, the former Altona Magic man. And for Albano, who just couldn't link up with the run that Corey Sewell was offering further afield. Chaos launches one over the top. The second ball falls kindly for Barcia. And Tsitsiparas has got a bit of work to do here, not least because he was returning from an offside position. An easy one to deal with for referee Michael Mammis. Quartermain and Jordan English, the linesman for this evening. So the ball will be at the feet of Chris Oldfield, who steps onto an NPL Victoria or a Victorian footballing pitch for the 270th time in the league, I believe. I think I've got my maths right there. So
It's a lot.
It's not quite an out-and-out milestone or anything, but it is a significant number. And on the subject of experience, it hasn't done Ivan Franjic many favours with that pass, not his best. But I can only imagine what it would be like to be the player and the coach and to make an individual error. You've got to, I mean, I guess you've got to own up to it.
Well, in this day and age, I can't.
You know, usually if a player makes a mistake, they might turn to the manager and go, "Have you seen what he's doing? It's unbelievable." Doesn't quite have that luxury when the coach is also on the field at the same time.
I can't imagine. I can't think of the last time there was one a playing coach. At least, not off the top of my head.
Well, the funny thing, again, I'm testing my own memory banks here, Kate, but not many clubs do it. But Knights seem to, at least in the interim, have persisted with that structure in the past. Of course, Ben Suri, who is now the former coach, did do that back in the day. Marijan Svitkovic was a player coach, I think, after the... again, I'm really testing my memory here. The Mickey Cholina era in 2019. But this is the first time they've elevated one of those into a permanent sort of role immediately. And that's a significant show of faith in the coaching mind of Ivan Franjic.
He's not lacking for experience. Socceroo going to a World Cup, playing in Europe. And now a shot from downtown by one of his charges. In fact, his brother, Joe. But that went well over the top. It's the only other one I could think of that immediately came to mind was far away from here, and that's, of course, Kenny Dalglish years ago at Liverpool. I was listening to a podcast on the famous 1989 game between them and Arsenal when the Gunners went up there and won the league title in dramatic circumstances, and Kenny Dalglish was playing a manager on that occasion. Anyway, back here at Knights Stadium, where it probably is about as warm as it is in Liverpool at the moment, i.e. not very. But Knights are getting off to a pretty warm start here. They are, the first couple of minutes, they're starting to look the better side. South under pressure here at the back. And now it's Halfpenny, Morgan Evans, Carrigan, who scored last week in that 3-3 draw. And it falls okay here for Bramwell. Couldn't quite get his boot to ball. But they're still on the front foot here, Knights. It's Safe, Franjic brothers combined. Knights Brains Trust on this very early evidence will be feeling very comfortable with the decision to go with Ivan Franjic, the way they're playing here against the league leaders. And that's a good crossfield ball into the area. Who's there to arrive? No one. It was Corey Sewell coming late, probably not the guy Melbourne Knights wanted, and it spills out of play. And that's probably just as well for South Melbourne, who are doing it a little bit tough here as we approach the quarter-hour mark. They've come closest, South Melbourne, but really since then, it's been the home side who have been calling the shots. Still 0-0. Kate Lucas and Lockie Flanagan with you on YouTube. Hope you're enjoying the coverage on this very cool Friday night in Melbourne, the OG Derby. Here's Payos, who was excellent last week against Dinamo, and he slaloms around a couple of players here, out towards Sitsanaris. Can't go on one of those speedy runs as he puts it straight out of play in front of his own coach. He probably won't be too pleased with that.
Even so, I should say, it's still great to see George Sitsanaris get a crack at starting this game. I know there is maybe some future fixtures in mind, but I think it's a chance in the starting lineup that he more than deserves, not just on the back of his performance last week off the bench, obviously scoring that first senior goal, but just every time I've seen him come off the pine, he's been really, really impressive in the flashes that he's had. I think I'm not sure if it was his debut, but it was one of his first games last season. He was awarded man of the match, and he played only 45 minutes in what was a disappointing defeat to Heidelberg United, but he worked so hard, and you know, the term playing for the shirt gets thrown around a little bit liberally, but you know, we're talking about a kid who was a boyhood South Melbourne fan showing up, and that passion and intensity is shown from day one, and it's great to see him potentially running out a full game tonight. He's had more defending than attacking to do so far, as it's been largely a half-field game for Knights since the opening 5 minutes. Chance potentially on here for South, though. Bernardo with runners to the right and left, neither of them found. Placement of the pass was just always favouring Werndl. But South pick up possession. Another young star who's risen to prominence this season, Halfpenny, trying to haul down Anthony Dozzell. But the Knights with potentially some numbers forward. Just a bit scrappy through the middle third. Bernardo gets the eyes up. Didn't have a lot of options further afield, and in the end it's easy pickings for the dual French-Moroccan Saif Saki. Of course, we saw his brother Amza play for Melbourne City for a brief time in the A-League this season. Here he is back on the ball. A lovely chop inside of Jordan Lampard. We know he can score good goals. He won't do this time. Maybe Mitch Hall can do it. It's a block en route. And back at the feet of Saki, the danger man for Melbourne Knights. Twisting one way, then the other, and just blazing away in the end. And a couple of frustrated figures in and around the penalty spot that perhaps there should have been a cut back in their direction, but just like the appetite for risk that Saif Saki has on the right-hand side for Croatia.
Yes, it was a bit of a tight angle in the end, but he's making inroads down this near side flank, and even before it came to him, Mitch Hall probably came to him a bit early, and he didn't realise how much time he had, but he probably should have got a shot off there. But since they're going to have more opportunities here, Knights, if they can keep this going, they are certainly on top at the moment. As Dozzell can't keep that in. And it is a throw to Bernardo. And he gives it straight to Payos, who sends it straight out of play. A bit of a miscommunication there by the visitors, summing up their evening so far. They just look a bit off their tucker right now, Melbourne Knights. Sorry, South Melbourne at Melbourne Knights. Speaking of off their tucker. Here's Carrigan. Saki, the aforementioned save it in. Saki going down the flank again and setting away his captain coach. Even Frantic, here come Knights again. And some last-ditch defending there by Barcia. Cincinnati trying to get boot to ball, and he does now. And he can turn defence into attack. They're a bit stretched at the back here, Knights. Cincinnati plays it back in board. He's got Barcia. Just overcooks that pass towards Payos. And it may have been an offside in any event, but that is the risk for Melbourne Knights. Pushing up high, they are going to leave spaces at the back, and South Melbourne more than capable of exploiting them. Sewell getting out of a tight spot and gaining a bit of distance. Lampard with the throw. Halfpenny. He's trying to take a bit of sting out of the home side here. South Melbourne just needing a few passes together, having a bit of time on the ball. Gaining control of the game, which they haven't really been able to do so far. It's uncharacteristically, as that looked like a dead set handball for Saki, and the referee, even though he was a bit blindsided, it was obvious enough that he paid it. And South have it again here. Across 20 minutes, still goalless in the OG derby. Opportunities for both sides. None taken so far. South looking to go 6 points clear at the top of the table with a game in hand if they win tonight, whilst Knights could jump up to 7th. But they could also be leapfrogged tomorrow by the team they drew with last week, Green Gully, if they don't get a point out of this. Twisting and turning there was Hoare, who just going a bit too quick for his own good and fell over. bustling performance in midfield from him. So too from Franich, who wins the ball back. They're on here again, the home side, and it's Gianno Barno. He's scored from that range against this side before, Gianno Barno, but just biting off a bit too much on that occasion. They are asking more of the questions here through 21.5 minutes on YouTube. Kate Lucas and Lockie Flanagan with you. It's Knights 0, South 0.
And it's actually a bit of a rare sight to see Gian Albano not have a shot from that position at this ground, as you very well mentioned, Kate. But to pull the trigger on the left boot rather than the right, which he so often likes to do, cut inside and shoot on that side of his body. But again, I don't mind it. I think it does feel, granted, South Melbourne are playing with a number of first-team players either on the bench or out of the squad altogether. Of course, we should mention that Marko Jankovic is missing with a second straight week. I don't think it's anything too serious from what I've heard, just a bit of a knock. But he did train this week, just didn't make the squad tonight. But you want to see that risk-taking, that looks like Knights are playing with a little bit more of the freedom and the fluidity that we saw from them last season. Not being afraid to have a pop, I think, is part of that. There might be a chance in the offing here for Saki, who is an ever-present thorn on the right side of the South defence at the moment, and this time around he wins a corner for the hosts. But they have spent most of the game dictating it, Knights, and really they should. With South Melbourne's absentees, you can't help but feel that despite the differing fortunes this season and differing ladder positions, that Knights should see this as a South side or starting 11 there for the taking, as the corner comes in and Franich was the man moving for it. Sitsinyaris able to just momentarily side foot the thread away. Giselle. His long ball was blocked, and that one is asking a little too much of young George Sitsinyaris, the 22-year-old in the pace department. Of course, we do have another game running adjacent to this one. Dandenong City and Avondale level after 10 minutes played at Frank Holohan. If it's half as good as their opening round of the season encounter, which saw Avondale win 4-3, it should be a very good fixture.
You were on the call for that one, I believe.
Yeah, talk about setting a high bar, or setting the bar high early. That definitely did that.
Moreland City and Green Gully to kick off a bit later on. Moreland City will be looking for their second win of the season, second in a row, after breaking their duck last week. Back to matters here at Summer Street. Saki, who's been involved plenty through the first almost 25 minutes. There's Werndl. Over to Carrigan, pushing up high inside the south half. Here is Saki again, and then sending that to no one in particular. As Lockie mentioned off the top, this could well be the last meeting for quite a while between these two, with the National Second Division coming up, and South, of course, part of it, and Melbourne Knights somewhat surprisingly choosing not to, even though they, on record and reputation, are more than worthy.
I suppose the cynics among us, I might come back to that in a second, Cade.
Well, while you do, South are on the break here, and that bowls all the way through to even Frangic, who knocks it away. Herring down the far touchline there was Painter Andrews. He really put the afterburners on. Didn't come to much though, and Saki's got it right below us. Now Frangic.
My only counterpoint to it is that I wonder if some of the more cynical Knights and South Melbourne fans among us would say, well, it'll only be potentially the last time they meet in a while in the league, because they have a funny knack of drawing one another in the cup with regularity. I think they've met 3 times in the past 5 years in the cup. Of course, the most recent of which being in round 4 of 2024. South Melbourne 2-0 winners here at Knight Stadium.
Here come Knights on this occasion into the area now. Diving header by Barcia. Now it's Halfpenny, he'll hoof it away. And it's sent back the other way by Werndl. Bit of aerial ping pong between respective defences. Yes, all time in the NPL, it is rather lopsided. South leading at 13 wins to 4. And 2 of those wins came last season for Knights under Ben Khan. They did the double over South. But there's been pretty much one-way traffic for most of their time in this competition, as it was at the start of this season. But Knights certainly looking good to try and turn that around here, at least the way they've played through almost half an hour, and they're probing forward again. The blue shirts of South Melbourne uncharacteristically massed back in defence. Now they're looking to go on the break here. As Bernardo almost lost his footing, but now he's got the ball at his feet and he's causing Carrigan's problems. This is trouble for Knights. It's right across the face of goal. They were nearly exposed there, the home side. Nahul Bernardo has been a bit of a spectator so far. Once he got the wrong side of Ben Carrigan, he really headed in on goal. And a few supporters here at Knights Stadium were very relieved when that ball went across the face of goal.
I feel like he's had a bit of an underrated season, actually, for my money, Noel Bernardo. I mean, obviously Harrison Sawyer gets so much of the attention, and so too he should. He scored 12 goals in 12 games. But Bernardo is that secondary foil with, I think it's now 8 in 13 appearances, has really provided a very tantalising, I guess, second or support act to the main show that is Harrison Sawyer.
He's the equal second highest scorer in the comp.
It's just one of those players, I think, that regardless of whether or not he's scoring goals or not, you enjoy watching him because, I thought we saw a good example over there. He's always, not the fastest player necessarily, but his runs are always so direct. He wants to get as close to goal as humanly possible. The only thing missing there was that, unlike, Saif Saki moments earlier, he didn't pull the trigger and went for the cross instead.
Actually, my bad. I think Alex Salmon is on 9 goals as outright second, but Bernardo, I think last week when he scored his second, was equal second for a while. But yes, he's a great pickup from Green Gully. Knights going forward looking for a goal themselves. That's a long ball by Carrigan, and Saki will just get there. He's got Lampard right with him. They take it into the corner. And the Frenchman wriggled past another ex-Green Gully player, not on this occasion. And it's out of play. And again, it's deep in the final third here for Knights. South should get it away this time. I say should as they've turned it over. Barcia goes to ground. Now Joe Frandic out towards Saki again. Red shirts in the box. Helped clear by Morgan Evans. Again, they've allowed a few too many balls into the box tonight, South, and haven't been all that convincing when they've had to deal with them. They usher it out of play here right on halfway. There's a bit of a debate as to who it came off. South throw through Jordan Lampard. We've crossed half an hour. Still goalless. But the even Frandic should be the happier of the two coaches. Speak of the devil, he's on the pitch and he's heading it away here. His team, ignoring the form book, ignoring the all-time record, they are on top in this derby so far. They don't have a goal to show for it though. Here is Frandic right below us on the broadcast side of Knights Stadium, and there's a bit of a breeze whipping in from the south. Helps Frandic get a bit more power behind the ball. That throw goes all the way back to Harvey Lopez. Clad in green tonight, Harvey Lopez. For all Knights' pressure, he hasn't had a whole lot to do. Lopez, in fact, I'm not sure he's actually made a save yet. Bramwell brought it down, but then it's knocked away by Lampard. Back to the aforementioned Lopez. Evans. And they're turning it over in midfield. Intervention there by Dizelle. Now Hoare. Now Frangic. They build again. Saki has been their main outlet tonight. He whips in the cross to the back post. There's nobody home. Albano on the edge of the area keeps the move going. And an intercept there by the usual suspect, Jake Marshall. Towering central defender, got down on that occasion to see it out for a corner. Which I think of Mike Koenig's the second of the evening for Knights. Neither side's had too many set pieces so far. But the home side have got one. 32 minutes played. And it comes from the far side. Glancing header there by Barcia. There will be an attacking throw here for Knights. Doing very well to hold the ball in their forward third. Throw here for Frangic. Saki back to Frangic. Probably seen more of the ball than any two players on the pitch so far. Now Dizelle. Here we go, the long crossfield ball. And that's misdirected. Lampard does well, and then that's a tricky pass across to Evans. Almost cut out there by Kieran Bramwell. A few hearts and mouths on the south bench after that, but finally they get out after a seemingly never-ending spell of pressure there by the home side.
Yeah, and I can't help but think back to your earlier remark, Kate, about how for all the promise and territorial control that Melbourne Knights have had, and they have had it in this game so far, they are yet to really well and truly test Javi Lopez. And part of that is this South defence is a hard one to breach. They stack the defensive penalty area very well, but thinking back to their meeting in the Doherty Cup, they found it very hard to, when the chances did arrive, Lopez was still coming up with special saves. So, you know, finding the gaps is only half the battle, especially when you play South Melbourne, because he made some outstanding stops against Knights when their chances did come up in the Doherty Cup. I just want to see them maybe commit a few numbers or a few extra numbers into the penalty area when those openings do present on the flanks. I know they're wary of the transitional threat that South have got, but not to sound like a broken record, 3 first-choice walk-up starters out of the 11. This is as good an opportunity you get in a game as significant as this one. What can Melbourne Knights give us as we head towards the end of the half? It's Tom Werndl exchanging the ball with Ben Carrigan, one of the goal scorers from last week for the Knights. His first goal in Knights colours, his first goal in nearly a year in NPL Victoria. He's the only player who's played every single minute of this league campaign so far. John Albano looking to work an angle on the left-hand side. South's defensive numbers were well positioned. Sitsanyaris booms one forward, and the bounce could and did favour Bernarda. But he is the lone hand up top. He waits for the runners to return, and frustratingly for the visitors, he could find none of them. Melbourne Knights, for their troubles, have got a few more numbers forward. A lovely ball. Bramwell, the man who'd slipped behind the defence. A claim for a penalty, and it is given by Michael Mammis. Melbourne Knights will head to the spot. Javi Lopez, who's had nothing to do so far from a save perspective, is forced into action for the first real time. And his action is one that concedes a penalty, much to his disappointment, but much to the excitement and expectation of the hosts.
Well, that was a super defence-splitting ball. I think, pardon my accuracy, but I think it was Anthony Dizelle who played that brilliant ball through, set away Kieran Bramwell, And it was just in that area of space where Lopez had to come out, had to commit, and the referee had no other choice but to point to the spot. And now, with the opportunity, Knights have got to put it away. And it is Gian Albano who will have that opportunity. And he doesn't put it away. It's well saved by Lopez. And your comments moments ago, Lockie, about his brilliance in shot stopping when shots do come in, comes to the fore again, because that was a wonderful stop. Memories of that Doherty Cup defeat will be ringing in the minds of Knights players and supporters after that. But here comes Albano. He's going to have another go. He's coming down the flank here. He's got the defender on his heels. It was Archibald who was backpedaling there, and the ball spills out and it's a goal kick. And Melbourne Knights will be wondering how they're not in front after that.
Javi Lopez, Cade, one of those players where at this point you're starting to run out of superlatives for the goalkeeping quality of the man. I mean, if the awards aren't enough, you know, the reigning Theo Mamaris medalist, the reigning goalkeeper of the season 2 consecutive times, the gold medal is the only thing this guy hasn't picked up as yet, and you know, saves like that are the reason why. I think he's meandering now towards, I think, 5 penalty saves this season, and now perhaps South have got their tails up. Sitson Yaris trying to haul that ball in and doing so. The 22-year-old, what can he create on the ball? He knocks it back to Archibald. And the cross will take a deflection off the right foot of Sitson Yaris, and there's a bit of phlegm and bile in the crowd now, which is good to hear. But just back to that point on Javi Lopez's penalty saves. He made a save earlier in the season. The opponent currently escapes me. Made the penalty save. It had to be retaken, and he made the save again. He's obviously produced one here too. So that's at least 3 in this year alone. Of course, one of those won't count to the official figures, but he is just absolute quality, the Spaniard. He's made a lot of good decisions on and off the park over the last 3 to 4 years, South Melbourne, to get them back towards title contention, and arguably bringing him in from Bentley, the best of the lot. It's an up and under ball. Contesting in the centre circle were Carrigan and Payos, but Michael Mamis is going to draw play dead for the earlier infringement against Noel Bernarda. But by the other side of the coin, Kate, it's such a frustrating one for Albano, because the quality of the pass to Kieran Bramwell was a pass that deserved reward in some fashion, and for he to be the one who had to have it saved, and maybe you could argue in the fullness of time that it was at a savable height for the keeper. You couldn't fault it too much other than that.
He just looks like one of those keepers who's good at making saves. He's not the tallest keeper. He's obviously very agile, though. Gets down very quickly. Great reactions. It's Chris Oldfield, the keeper at the other end, who'll have work to do as that free kick is drifted in, and Oldfield wraps his hands around it. And now sets his team away quickly, but Albano is beaten to it. And another strong challenge there by Barcia, but a bit too strong, says the referee. Knights fans aren't impressed, and we might have our first booking of the evening here. Barcia and the referee are having a chat as the Knights player he caught, I think it's Corey Sewell, is still down. Knights fans are not exactly shy in letting their feelings know. Garcia's walking away, and I don't think I've seen a yellow card drawn.
I think I'm just having
what's happened here? He's walking off. He's walking off. I haven't seen a card of any type shown. Have you?
I'm just going to have a quick look on the...
Or is he just going off for a drink?
Just going to have a quick look on the replay here. I believe a card was shown. My understanding, just from re-watching the incident, is that it was Mario Barcia who picked up a yellow.
He's back on the field, so I thought when he stormed straight off, I thought for a second he'd been sent off, but that doesn't look like it's happened.
I will admit, from this distance in this lighting, the colour of the card was unclear, but no, it does appear to be a yellow and nothing more for Mario Barcia.
Well, I was going to say, I don't remember seeing him produce the card, but then I figured, well, there's no way that couldn't be a card of some sort. Anyway, it looks like it is yellow, and play goes on. Close to half-time here, we've crossed 40 minutes. Oldfield sends Knights back up into their attacking third, where they've spent much of this game. Don't have much to show for it, though. Still 0-0. Knights having a penalty saved moments ago from Gian Albano after Kieran Bramwell was brought down by the goalkeeper Harvey Lopez, who then redeemed himself with a wonderful save from the spot. Keeping this game on level terms, which in general play doesn't really deserve to be. Here's Dizelle in midfield. Back towards Sewell, who's recovered from that early knock from Barcia. Now Joe Frangic. Hoare. Albano with some fancy footwork. They have really dominated possession so far in this half. It's not often you see South Melbourne chasing the ball like this. Wonder whether frustration might get the better of Knights if they can't put a score on the board for all this good play, for all this dominance. Here is Carrigan. Frangic. Saki back to Carrigan in unfamiliar territory. Headed back by Joe Frangic. Had trouble clearing their lines all evening so far. And this man's been part of the reason why. Dizelle. He dominated the engine room. Up to Saki now. Chaos. Lovely footwork, almost a bit too good. He went to ground. Now he loses out to Carrigan. He looks to the referee expecting a free kick. Michael Memmis says play on. Knights are happy to do that. Inside the final minute of normal time. Can they go ahead here? Lovely football. Hoare! And still they can't score. Well, that deserved a goal. Lovely one-touch football on the edge of the box by the home side. And Mitchell Hoare has seen his shot deflected wide, but it has gone out for a corner.
Look, it's not the end product that they so desperately crave, but we're seeing some of that beautiful football from last season slowly start to make its way back into the Knights lineup. I think it might have been another outstanding save to deny them from Harvey Lopez as the corner comes in. The rain comes down. The free header is there right on the spot. And Kieran Bramwell probably should have done a little bit better with that one than he did in the end. Landed to him on a platter by Saif Saki on the right-hand side. Maybe the rain just got the better of him, perhaps, but it's a bigger chance than I think the subsequent crowd reaction and the player reaction suggested.
1 minute of stoppage time at the end of this half. As the heavens open here at Summer Street, it's not only cold and a bit windy, it's now wet. Can Knights warm the cockles of the hearts of their supporters with a late goal here? They certainly deserve one. And they're creeping forward on the edge of the area here through Albano. He tried the party tricks that didn't come off. Now sits in Yaris, coming back the other way. Or it would sting if South could hurt them here on the break late in the half. It sits in Yaris. He goes with an audacious chip. It doesn't come off into the palms of Chris Oldfield. And he might be happy for the half-time whistle to blow here. Liverpudlian, who'd be right at home in this sort of weather. And he will see us to half-time here at Summer Street in the OG Derby, the second one of the season, maybe the last one for a while. And Melbourne Knights are making the most of it, at least in terms of general play. They have completely outpointed South Melbourne in those first 45 minutes in a way they haven't done for quite a while, but unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to show it on the scoreboard. They came close in the final stages of the first half when Kieran Bramble won a penalty. He was brought down by Harvey Lopez, but the resulting penalty from Gian Albano was saved by the South Melbourne keeper. Nahul Bernardo went close for South Melbourne early on, but that was really their only chance. Mitch Hoare also went close for Knights late in the half, and they'll be frustrated as they go in at the break at a cold and wet Summers Street on level terms. It is Melbourne Knights 0, South Melbourne 0.
Well, it's an original Melbourne derby here at Knight Stadium in Sunshine that has had just about everything but an opening goal to bring to you. Welcome back to the second half of round 14 action in NPL Victoria between Melbourne Knights and South Melbourne, where it is delicately poised, but perhaps it should be balanced a little bit more in favour of the Melbourne Knights, who, despite a very promising first half, which saw a string of fantastic saves from Javi Lopez, particularly from the penalty spot against John Albano, should perhaps have a lead to show for it, but they don't. And South Melbourne have responded in kind. Probably the biggest, in literal and figurative terms, substitution you can make has been played by Esteban Quintas as the league's top scorer and South Melbourne captain Harry Sawyer enters the fray at half-time. Can Melbourne Knights continue their control? And can they get a goal as Corey Sewell looks to score something special in original Melbourne derby 1-1-5? As I welcome Cade Lucas to join myself, Lockie Flanagan, for the second half of the game. And it is, a fixture that's in an interesting position. You feel like Melbourne Knights perhaps should currently be in the ascendancy, but as yet, the door remains open for the opener for either side.
Thank you, Lockie. Yes, and with Harry Sawyer coming onto the field, trying to get involved here as we speak, as he sends that up and down the chimney. Yes, with the league's leading scorer coming onto the field off the bench. Might just be the sneaking feeling amongst Knights players and supporters that maybe their opportunity has slipped by. They've got 45 minutes to do something, though, against their biggest rival, and they're in the area here. It's Corey Sewell. Again, somewhat unusual figure to that far forward. He's more known as a defender. Ricochet is out of play. And it'll be a goal kick for Javi Lopez, who had as big an impact as anybody on the pitch in the first half with a penalty save from Gian Albano and another very good save late on from Mitch Hoare, without which South Melbourne would be staring down the barrel of defeat. They'd be one, if not two goals down. It was Knights who really had the better of that first 45, as Lockie mentioned. The first half, which ended in pretty awful weather. It's cold here, but it was sheeting rain as well, but the rain has abated during the half. We're very much in winter football conditions now. Lampard, long ball forward over the head of Sawyer. Oldfield, ball just sitting up in the breeze a bit. There is a bit of a, not a gale, but there is a bit of a breeze coming from the south. And Knights are a bit sloppy in possession here. It's Sitsanaris. Ricochet's back to him. Scored last week. Has a go from a long way out this time. It's ricocheted out. Sitsanaris thought it came off a Knights player. But Michael Mamis says goal kick.
Just a confirmation for those who might have been wondering along at home. I believe Cooper Halfpenny was the man who made way in place of Harrison Sawyer. Don't think Cooper Halfpenny necessarily did too much wrong, but I don't think that's necessarily the angle to come at that substitution. No. I think it's more of a case of if you've got the league's top scorer on the bench and you need a goal, it's a pretty obvious solution to the problem that presents in front of you.
And Knights, of course, have their own goal scorer on the bench in Tommy Semi. I wonder how long it may be before he enters the fray, if indeed he does.
For the man on the ball. Of course, the Hoare name familiar to South Melbourne. His brother Henry, a former South Melbourne player, who was meant to play against his brother in the Australia Cup last year. A bad time for Henry to picked up a yellow card suspension. Painter Andrews launches the ball up the sideline. rain has just returned to us here at Knights Stadium, although a little bit lighter in its intensity. Seems to have replaced the swirling wind that we saw in the first half, but I shan't speak too soon.
Here's Albano. Albano trying to wriggle his way through it. Spills out towards Sewell, who's gotten forward again. And that's a teasing ball in. Joe Frangic tries to control it. Bernardo got it away, and Sawyer's through the middle here. Oldfield has to commit himself. The veteran does well. Almost exposed their Knights, but now they've got it again through Sewell. And that's chopped off comfortably by Lampard as the rain returns to Summer Street. And the ball's out of play, and it's still 0-0 here as we cross 50 minutes, and it's 0-0 elsewhere in the other two fixtures tonight in the NPL. Dandenong City and Avondale, that's currently at half-time. It's 0-0 there. And Moreland City and Green Gully have just kicked off. No goals in that encounter either. Maybe the weather affecting the attacking instincts of teams this evening.
Just about to posit the same question or thought to you, Cade. It hasn't dampened, if you'll pardon the pun, I promise that was accidental. I know it didn't sound like it, but
puns very much welcome here on the NPL YouTube channel.
It hasn't dampened the enthusiasm of Melbourne Knights attack, at least in the first half. Yeah, the South Melbourne side automatically are just a different prospect by virtue of who has the cattle that has made its way onto the park for the second 45. Looping clearance is going to eventually fall back at the lap of Anthony Dozell. And in the moist surface of Knights Stadium, John Albano was always going to face a tough task to haul that ball in. He's only scored the 4 times this season. It's a great pass through the lines for Sitsin-Yaris, who had a quick check at the linesman. He was onside. The cross comes in, and it is a little bit overcooked in the end. Both teams maybe just adjusting to the slickness of the surface and the ball as well.
Full of enthusiasm, Sitsin-Yaris, maybe a bit too much there. He just got a bit too much behind that ball. The other second half goal scorer last week, actually we'll get back to that as South go forward here and Payos has won a corner. Here's the other second half goal scorer last week for South, along with Sitsin-Yaris, was Andy Brennan. He, unlike Sitsin-Yaris, didn't get a elevation to the starting lineup this week, but is another goal scoring option they have on the bench. They might need him though if they score here. They've got a corner South. Rain sheeting in. Payos with the corner. It's flicked in. It's off the woodwork. That may have come off a Knights player. Either way, they have got a coat of paint to thank for still being on level terms, the home side. And now it's Frangic coming away as they look to turn defence into attack. Can't do so on this occasion. But that is as close as either side have come, even including the penalty, Lockie.
Absolutely was, and it was nearly an opener for South of Melbourne Knights' own making. Kieran Bramwell, I think, who is the man who glanced that one onto the post. I was thinking for all the remarks we made in the first 45 about the fact that Javi Lopez hadn't been called into action to make a save. Chris Oldfield hasn't had a lot to do either, and he was nearly picking the ball out of his net before using his gloves. Not going to have to this time either. Sawyer, rather, I think it was Bernardo on his left shoulder retreating from an offside position.
How odd that it would have been Kieran Bramwell as well, the leading scorer for the Knights, but usually putting the ball in the net at the right end of the field.
It would have been a cruel twist of fate for their leading scorer. He's been in a pretty reasonable form recently, actually, Kieran Bramwell. Pair of goals against Dandenong Thunder in that 3-0 win. He was on the score sheet last week too.
He's called into action again here, Oldfield. That was almost a mix-up. He does usually judge those well, the veteran. He's called to come off his line. He does so without a moment's hesitation. Here's Saki, his first real involvement for the second half. As one of the best players in the first half. Just feel the complexion of the game has changed a bit with the weather and also Sawyer coming on. Here's Evan Frangic trying to turn things back in his side's favour. Saki does a 360, then that pass is chopped off by Lampard. Frangic will have the throw. Back out on the field after giving his team talk. Bramwell at the right end of the pitch now, tried to play in a teammate. Couldn't quite find another player in a red shirt. And now there's a bit of a dispute as to where that throw should be taken from. So 10 minutes played in this second half, and if you're just joining us, you have not missed much. Apart from South Melbourne almost scoring through a Melbourne Knights own goal. But other than that, it's just been rain and wind and not a lot else here at Summer Street. Between South Melbourne and Melbourne Knights, between first and ninth on the ladder. It certainly hasn't looked like a gap that big so far in the way this game's been played. Melbourne Knights they've got less than half the amount of points that South do, but they clearly the better side in the first 45. South have got things back in their favour a bit more at the start of the second half. Apart from that own goal, or an almost own goal to Kieran Bramwell, there hasn't been much else to speak of. Here's Sawyer. South player caught. He's back to goal. There's no free kick given. Sits in Yaris. Pushes it forward and picking it up just inside the byline was Archibald. And it ricochets out of play. Don't remember calling his name too much tonight so far. Ross Archibald back in the lineup. Missed last week's win against Dynamo.
Just taking a look over the touchline, Kate. I think you've spoken one of South's substitutes onto the field. Andy Brennan, I think, is going to come on in place of Max Mikola, or sorry, alongside Max Mikola. Noel Bernardo will be one of the players to depart. I think Emil Payos is going to be the other. He'll leave just behind the corner flag. So South Melbourne definitely getting towards something approaching full strength now with their additions off the bench.
Getting the band back together. Will it have an effect? They've got a corner here, or a throw rather. As good as a corner almost. Archibald sends it into Sawyer. Now sits in Yaris. Put his laces through it. It was blocked. Does well to win the ball back. Gee, he's got some enthusiasm, the young man. Bundle of energy down the flanks. Fancy you're going to see him play many, many more games in a South shirt. Unless, of course, he ends up playing at an even higher level. There's Joe Frangic. He has played at a higher level in the past, but now back here with his brother Ivan as he takes the reins of Melbourne Knights, and things were looking very good for them in that first half, but not so much since the break. South with a throw here, and it's Max Mikola has just come on the field. And no one is more dangerous in this situation than Mikola. And in it goes, right into the mixer. Sawyer there, brought it to ground. Back to Mikola. To the back post. There's blue shirts there. Brennan who's just on. Sawyer now sits in Yaris. They're queuing up. Eventually Knights get it away, but only momentarily. All of a sudden that first half seems a long time ago. They're under the cosh here, the home side. Sits in Yaris. Comes across Archibald. Not sure what he was up to there, Ross Archibald. Thought he was going to have a shot, but just let the moment pass, and Melbourne Knights get a bit of breathing space.
It's almost, Cade, just on the basis of the last few minutes. I don't want to speak too soon, but like the sides have swapped shirts at half time, because the pattern of play that we saw in the first, which was Melbourne Knights really applying pressure to their opponents, not through creation of a heap of shots necessarily, but through plenty of crosses into the penalty area that South Melbourne had to repel, is now repeating itself. They really played themselves into trouble that time, South. Painter Andrews, good covering by John Albano. You can hear what his teammates thought of it. I do wonder when Knights will spring a substitution of their own. Of course, the presence of Tommy Semi looms large. The rest of the bench are comparatively more youthful complexion. Thomas Karlovic, who we saw for the first time this season in round 12. 19-year-old John Mabok, who, if you believe this, Cade, we talk about the concept of super substitutes. His run of 11 straight substitute appearances came to an end last week when he was an unused sub, so looking to make his 12th appearance of the season.
All right, well, big news. There is a goal. We have a goal, not here, but Green Gully have scored over Moreland City. Green Gully 1, Moreland City 0.
And we may get a goal here as well. Mikola waiting for the numbers to filter into the penalty box. It's stood up for Sawyer. It's cleared off the line again. Melbourne Knights hanging on by a thread at the moment. Brennan shifts his weight onto the left, feeds Mikola again. Scoops in a nicely shaped cross, but repelled this time by Werndl with a little bit more emphasis. And Melbourne Knights, after 45 minutes of control, have spent the 15 minutes that have preceded the first half living on the edge, either of the goal frame or of the goal line.
I wonder when they might be making a change, Melbourne Knights. I'm not sure how even Franjic communicates that. He has some defending to do here as the ball goes over his head. But we've crossed the hour mark and they have yet to make a change, and it looks like South Melbourne might be making another one maybe. They've already made 3. And they've had the desired effect because they have turned this game around, at least in terms of general play. Still the same on the scoreboard, 0-0. 62.5 minutes played. Cade Lucas and Lockie Flanagan with you on YouTube on this very cold and wet Friday night here at Summers Street. Hope you're enjoying the action, preferably in front of the fire at home. Here come Knights against the run of play. Joe Franjic against, he coast for home, the younger brother of the coach. And Harvey Lopez again with a top save. Almost got the words caught in my throat there, Lockie. He almost pulled that one out of the top drawer.
Joey Franjic is playing NPL Victoria game number 170 tonight. He's only ever scored 1 goal, so I'm not surprised if you're lost for words at him having a shot from range that had to be repelled.
Short corner, and it's a bit of a waste opportunity. They go all the way back to the halfway line. Maybe that'll spark Knights up. It's their first real attack of any note of the half as Albano sends it back to Sewell. Long ball into the breeze. Carrigan's clattered into. The referee letting it go, or at least did momentarily, but now it's going to stop as Carrigan copped a whack on the back of the head. And he's going to need some assistance.
This is an interesting one, because are we gonna end up with a free kick at the end of this? I think we are. I just looked for a moment that Michael Mammoth signalled for stoppage of play to assist the injured player, but not for a free kick.
Well, you seem to motion to the physios to come on the field. In any case, there's going to be another change here, and the first one for Melbourne Knights. Kieran Bramwell's off, Tommy Semi's on, and looks like it might be Jacob Inglesi coming on for South Melbourne. Came on as a substitute last week. Similar point in the match. Yes, it's Inglesi on. Not sure who came off for South. Anyway, they're in defence here, which they haven't had much to do of in this second half. But they're turning it forward now as Sawyer tries to play in Brennan. Carrigan is recovered from that knock, goes back to Oldfield. Franjic is down behind play. He yelped in pain, the captain coach. Play going on around him. South coming forward. Knights fans not impressed as Michael Mammis lets play go on. Franjic is getting up, he's hobbling. Ball comes into the box, and that's very nearly an own goal to Knights. Goodness me, Corey Sewell just almost caressed the ball into his own net. Chris Oldfield didn't know much about it. As a famous former cricket commentator, Lockie would say, it's all happening.
Well, I mean, my only question for Melbourne Knights is, where were these, I know they're all wayward rather than goal-bound, but where were these supple touches in front of that penalty area in the first half? Because you've had a few promising efforts. Unfortunately, a lot of them have been at that end when they're defending that goal rather than attacking it. But yeah, there would have been a bit of a sour taste in the mouth of Melbourne Knights had that ended up as a goal. I think quite a few aggrieved that play continued while Ivan Franjic was injured. He lives to fight another day. I've mentioned it, he hasn't played Ivan Franjic in a victorious original Melbourne Derby side since April of 2008. And South are looking to pierce the Knights' defence once again. They will get a corner. Andy Brennan, of course, scored the sealer when these two sides met in the Doherty Cup earlier this year, and it was a sealing goal to savour. We'll hope to turn provider from the corner flag. NPL wasn't a thing back when Ivan Franjic was winning original Melbourne Derby games. How can Brennan produce a decently shaped corner? And again, it's Knights who are the first head to the ball. Tommy Semi forced to just pump it away.
You can see from the corner flag there, the breeze has really kicked up. It looks like it's coming right across Knights Stadium here, or maybe from the southwest. And Andy Brennan will be sending this corner into it. Might sit up right on the 6-yard box. In it comes, and the whistle was blown before the ball had reached its intended destination. Knights will be relieved with that because they come away with a goal kick. Approaching the final 20 minutes here, still goalless between Knights and South Melbourne at Summers Street. Good crowd in, rugged up in very inclement conditions. It's been a night of plenty of chances for either side. Plenty of almost own goals too, but no goals. We've had a penalty that was saved as well. As Lockie said, we've had pretty much everything other than goals. And a bit's happened even since then, as Werndl sends that ball out of play. Morgan Evans with the throw. Sawyer flicks it on, sits in Yaris to the byline, and he sends it right into the solar plexus of Carrigan, who's in the wars a bit at the moment, as it deflects out for a corner, and Carrigan is probably dreaming of being at home in a warm bath or something right now, or in front of the fire with his feet up.
It's one of those ones where you're always racked with guilt as a player, because you know how painful it is to be on the other end.
Here comes the corner, and again you can see the breeze. It's probably another reason why South are doing better, because they got the breeze at their backs, like Knights did in the first half. Probably a factor that we haven't remarked upon much. Ducks and Drakes in the penalty area there. Carrigan again going down. Finally the corner's taken. Sits up to the back post. And eventually Harrigan hacks it clear, or Carrigan rather, but it's put back in by Mikola. And Werndl eventually saves the day for Knights. tumbles out of play in the process.
South Melbourne substitution seemingly en route here. Just about played every single card they've got off the bench. We'll have to hold for now, or in fact it will happen. So the substitution comes to fruition as Max Mikkola missiles in a long throw. It's glanced towards goal and all the way in. Jake Marshall, the man, or rather, it's Lucas Inglese with the opener in the original Melbourne derby. The young 20-year-old defender gets his first South Melbourne goal in NPL Victoria. And boy, oh boy, what a time to score it.
Well, you just sensed that was coming, didn't you? So many opportunities for Knights in that first half. They even had some chances in this second half, but the longer it went without them breaking through, you just knew that South, with all their resources, all their guile and experience and quality, would eventually score and make them pay, and that they've done. Lucas Inglese, probably the least likely person on the field to be finding the back of the net, but he's done so. And as I say that, this goal scorer has just slipped over and almost provided an opportunity for Knights straight back into the game. They've got to keep their heads up now, Melbourne Knights. They've got the best part of 20 minutes still to salvage something. They know they're in this game. They've had opportunities. Can they muster something? They do have more substitutes up their sleeve on the bench. Certainly not the quality that South Melbourne have been able to bring on, but they do have some fresh legs, some fresh bodies. A few Melbourne Knights players warming up actually at the car park end as we speak, as Lampard takes the free kick, goes long. Harrison Sawyer's eyes lit up momentarily. He thought he was going to sneak in behind. He's staring down the barrel of going 2 games rather, without a goal, which would be a bit of a drought almost for Harrison Sawyer. He'd scored 12 in 11 before last week's game, where he didn't score, and started on the bench tonight as Jaron Albano runs into a cul-de-sac but gets the ball back. This is better for Knights. Albano in the area, and he fires it right across the face of goal. That's a bit more like it from even Frangich's men. You wonder if maybe going a goal down, full time coming into view, whether they are going to chance their arm a bit and commit a few more bodies forward in the second half.
Fortunately, though, well, they'll have to hope that that's the case, because the game was there for the taking in moments prior. But ever since they made that raft of substitutions, South Melbourne, the likes of Mikkola, Sawyer, Brennan, Inglese and co coming on, it's just, I don't know, it's had a bit of an air of inevitability that something like that was going to be in the offing. Brennan rakes the ball across to Sitson-Yaris, but nipped in the bud by Sewell, and Albano now can amble his way towards goal. Stood up nicely that time by Barcia, but it's going to be coming back in the opposite direction. Sewell drives it in, and Marshall is at full stretch to deny a tantalising ball into the penalty area. And Lucas Inglese, his first goal in the league for South Melbourne at the moment, is an original Melbourne derby winner. Saki to the byline. A well-shaped cross. It's over the head of both Franjic and Semi, who has to retreat to retain possession for the hosts. It's good interception initially by Archibald, but Knights building. Dazelle kept a cool head. Albano laid it down for Sewell. Oh, what a save once again from Javi Lopez. It's an inventive snapshot from Corey Sewell. It was travelling, and it had to be matched by something from the top draw from the Spaniard.
What a hit. Now Semi from the other side. We were right behind that, and Corey Sewell caught that sweet. Fortunately for Lopez, he did see it all the way. The seas parted a bit for him, and he saw it headed towards him, but it was coming at a rate of knots. He hasn't been called into action too much, Javi Lopez, but when he has been on point. And he's a big part of why his team are once again in front with full time approaching. Well, even Frangic has subbed off his brother Joe, so that could be an interesting conversation at the kitchen table maybe tomorrow. Assuming they don't live together, they probably don't, but...
it'd be too much, surely. Surely, you've got to draw the line somewhere.
Anyway, Joe Frangic is off. Second substitution of the evening for the home side. Work out exactly who came on in a moment. Anyway, South Melbourne looking to go for the jugular here. The second goal will surely finish it. Albano. Back to Inglesi, the goal scorer. Brennan. Over the head of Sitson-Yaris. They were the two substitutes in the second half last week. They came on together, Brennan and Sitson-Yaris, and they both scored. South go all the way back to Lopez as the rain abates here at Summer Street. Sitson-Yaris. Carrigan. Dazelle gone out of the game a bit in this second half, a bit like his team. Semi. Struggled to get into the game since coming on, Tommy Semi. Now they're on the move. It's Saki who skipped out of a challenge. And it's played forward. Albano. He got far too much of it. Might have got a touch from Marshall, who flashed across, the big defender. But a few of the fans here in the Mark Viduka stand got very excited there for a moment as Gian Albano come in. But it ballooned out for a Javi Lopez goal kick as we approach 78 minutes here at Summers Street. It is Melbourne Knights 0, South Melbourne 1 in the OG Derby. And the visitors look as though they're headed for their 11th win of the season.
I just get the sense that maybe Melbourne Knights played with their food a little bit in that chance. I mean, it was still a good idea to slip it into the box for Gian Albano, but there's a man who can score from that sort of range, Saif Saki. I'm just surprised to see him not pull the trigger, given he scored one of his 2 goals in stunning fashion in almost that exact spot in a 3-3 draw against Avondale earlier this year. Sawyer making himself busy and just past the centre circle, but Michael Mammis, who has let a lot of things run this evening for both sides, he's going to pull Harris and Sawyer up this time around.
He does like to put it about, as they say, Harrison Sawyer. He's a big physical unit, and he doesn't mind
when you've
letting opposing players know that.
And I think six yellow cards going into this fixture would speak to exactly that. But I mean, I guess when you stand at 6'5", 195 centimeters tall, you know, if you've got a frame like that, you may as well use it. You may as well use it. We might have to do a bit more on the defensive end as this game transpires. Do they try and sit on a 1-goal advantage, South Melbourne, or do they go for the jugular and try and score a second? Sitson-Yaris picks up the pieces. Archibald was a cool head. And Evans up the line for Sawyer. He's just going to make himself hard to beat. It's a bit scrappy, and eventually Knights come away with possession through Corey Sewell, but he's a hard man to get the ball off at the best of times, and that was nearly a brilliant ball. Albano has picked the pocket of Marshall. He's got the eyes up. Albano, the shot just never sat. And it wasn't the worst idea in the world to strike while the iron was hot, but the dip never materialized. And that, speaking of things that never materialized, we were meant to have a substitution, I think, right before the opening goal for Lucas Inglese. We never got it, and we will now. Mihailo Marinkovic is going to come onto the field of play in place of another youngster, George Sitson-Yaris. And this has been one of the great things about South Melbourne this season, but also a good story, Kate, about the league at large. I'll drop a coin into the jar preemptively. I mentioned the NST. With it on the horizon, it is good to see more of these big clubs start to trust in their youth and really build that pipeline, and we've seen quite a few come to the fore for South Melbourne this season.
Yes, Marinkovic was another second half sub last week. Both these clubs famous for their youth development over the years. We all know some of the famous names who have come through them. Who knows if some of the ones we've been talking about tonight will join them. There's an opportunity for players from either side to make a name for themselves in the last 10 minutes or so, particularly for Melbourne Knights, if they could salvage something here. They're still in this game. They'll be frustrated, and they're on the back foot now. Whilst it's a 1-goal margin, they are still a chance. Here's Brennan going laterally right across the field, like he thinks the goals are on the benches. Eventually he goes back to Inglese. It's cut out. Bit of messy football by both teams, but that suits Knights, who might be away here through Bramwell. Once again, Lopez denies them. And Kieran Bramwell looks skywards and thinks, what do I have to do to score? Now it's Sawyer. Barcia. This would really sting if they score again now, South. You almost half expected. Carrigan intercepts. Semi was a bit late there. He was just caught on his heels, the Papua New Guinea international, and Jordan Lampard beat him to the ball. And Semi has given away a free kick.
I don't know what Harvey Lopez's drink of choice is, a beer, a cerveza, a frappe, a coffee, whatever it is. I hope when he calls time on his South Melbourne career, whether that's through retirement or moving to another club, he never has to buy a beverage on Clarendon Street once again, because I don't think you can I don't think you can underestimate the influence and the impact and the quality of this guy has. I know every commentator will sing his praises, but it's just because he keeps on coming up with reasons to praise him. It's another brilliant save with the game in the balance.
Well, it's the goalkeeper at the other end who might have work to do here, Chris Oldfield. As South play the free kick short, and now Lampard can't get the cross in. It's another set-piece move from the training ground that didn't work out too well on the pitch. So I'll go with the tried and true Max Mikula throw instead. I think there might have been another substitute while that was going on. Anyway, here's Mikula right into the area again, and it's off the shoulder there of Ivan Franjic. And he's conceded a corner. So we're entering the final 6 minutes of the 90, and it's South who are still doing all the attacking. They look much more likely to finish this game off than Knights do to grab an equaliser, at least at this stage. It's Mikula with the corner. Sawyer in there trying to muscle his way through. Ricochets out wide to right below us where Albano strains, can't keep it in, but he has got, no, it's going to be a throw for South Melbourne. He almost fooled me, but not the referee. Morgan Evans has got it for South Melbourne. Next week they are at home against Moreland City, so if they knock up win number 11 here, you'd think number 12 would be very much in the offing against the bottom place team, who are currently losing as we speak to Green Gully, whilst Knights are away at JL Murphy Reserve next Saturday afternoon against Port Melbourne. That could be an interesting game too. Two teams much closer on the ladder than these two are. Sewell with the throw. Albano looked like he might have got a bit of hand involved in that, but nothing doing. And that's out for a throw. Again, you can see the corner flag really fluttering. The breeze certainly helping South Melbourne in this second half, and Ben Carrigan doesn't do much to help his team there. That's a tired old kick straight out of play.
It's as though Knights will a few more substitutes at the wall to see if they can make a goal stick in this game. John Mabok and I think Thomas Karlovic will be the two players to enter the fray. The small matter of a Max Mikkel, a long throw to attend to first. Inglese was the target. As Werndl wants the ball for another throw. I imagine that we'll see a similar sort of delivery from Mikkeler as the rain picks up once again in the dying embers of original Melbourne Derby 115. Lucas Inglese's goal set to win it. Could they add to the tally, South Melbourne? It's not fully cleared by the Knights. There's a whistle from Michael Mammis that draws play dead, and now those substitutions will come through for the hosts.
Given this rain, you wouldn't blame them if they just turned around and went back and sat down.
Keen, despite the inclement weather, to make their way onto the field. The head coach, captain and outfield player Ivan Franjic has taken himself off for the dying embers. John Mabok will enter the field of play. Nodded down to Bramwell, a blind pass, but it's fallen kindly initially for Semi. Is Thomas Karlovic the other player on, as South Melbourne might have a break on here. Brennan, plenty to look at further afield. Mikkeler, a lovely dummy, is clipped, or look to be, all legal, all fair, says Michael Mammis. Knights come the other way. The rain is driving down here at Knights Stadium. There's Morton. Time the enemy of Croatia at the moment, and passes like that are two. Sawyer make the charge forward as Brennan not in too much of a hurry to keep the attack moving. And so another wave of Knights attack. The ball in from Carrigan, glanced clear. South get the numbers up. Nodded down by Albano for Sewell. The favour repaid to John Albano, and again clipped into the middle, but that's easy pickings in the end for Javi Lopez. It sailed through without a touch en route to goal.
He made it look easy, but I'm not sure in this weather it would have been too easy. That ball would be like a bar of soap at the moment. It is teeming down here at Summers Street. There's the heaviest spill of rain we've had tonight. Carrigan Got collected by Sawyer on the way through. He is in the walls, Ben Carrigan. Albano. Very much last chance saloon territory now for Knights. We're inside the final 30 seconds of the 90. That's a rasping crossfield ball by Sewell. Couldn't quite reach Sewell, Semi rather the target. Carrigan's got it. Saki dinks it down the channel. This is promising. Ball comes across the area, parried away by Lopez. Saki. 4 minutes of stoppage time, more than enough for the home side to try and salvage something. And they're not going to die wondering, but in doing so, they might leave themselves exposed at the back. And here's Brennan, looking to put the finishing touches on it. Brennan went with the chip, and Harrison Sawyer looks at him and says, "What on earth were you doing there? I was free." Game becoming a bit stretched though. You wouldn't be surprised if there is another goal here. There's a South player down behind play. Tommy Semi, meanwhile, blasts that one into the social club. And the South player is still down, clutching his ankle. We're trying to identify who it is.
I think it's Max Mikola. Don't want to guess, but
well, he had to be substituted last week with a similar issue, which is probably why he started on the bench tonight. And he looks in real pain.
Yeah, this is not pleasing to see. Whichever Melbourne Knights Junior is first to make it to the social club after full time, the playground is going to pick themselves up a new ball. Nicola looks to be back to his feet at least. Sawyer. He's always fighting a losing battle, turning into a red wall of Knights defenders. So we're into stoppage time here at Knights Stadium. Does this game have a final goal to bring to us? It's a creative flick from Jack Morton. He receives the ball from whence it came. To be at full tilt now, Knights. Overhit pass from the junior ball boy is not going to help matters. Albano. South players converge from every direction and clear in our direction. Carrigan, a heavy touch, but has been given a reprieve by Harrison Sawyer. Albano and Sewell threads the needle for Saki. A nice left-footed cross, but the end result is the same. Another clearance from this airtight South Melbourne defence. Glance clear of the feet of Saki. Sawyer darts the eyes up as ambles his way forward and pokes it in the Brennan direction. They've made a bit of a meal of trying to close out this game, South, when the chances have presented.
Just felt for his hamstring a bit there, Andy Brennan too. There's Werndl. Long ball forward, can't be long to go now. Mabok, who's just come on the pitch. With a few players out there who doesn't look absolutely drenched. Now it's Mikola, who has recovered from that knock, and he's putting it into the path of Sawyer here. Two defenders with him. He might just take it to the corner and eat up a bit of clock. In any case, it goes out of play. Here's Morton, who came on as a substitute a few minutes earlier. Both teams playing for the final whistle now. The sting has gone out of it a little bit. Morton again. They win it back here, South. And it is classic South Melbourne. They do the job again, and they do it against their great rival for probably the last time in a while, and maybe the last time in the NPL era. And if that is the case, it's a pretty lopsided scoreline. They win yet again over Melbourne Knights, but they had to withstand a lot of pressure in order to do so. They had to save a penalty in the first half. Their goalkeeper, Harvey Lopez, made a number of other key saves in the first half and in the second half. And then it was their substitute, Lucas Inglesi, who made the home side pay late on with a header from close range from a corner. This will be a bitter pill for Knights to swallow, but swallow it they'll have to. They remain very much mid-table, whilst South Melbourne, as we speak, are 6 points clear. Lockie Flanagan, your thoughts on this OG derby in a very cold and wet Knights stadium?
Well, win number 59 in the original Melbourne derby was certainly one that South Melbourne were made to work hard for, particularly in the first half, where they did have their backs to the wall a little bit with a few first choice members of the starting 11 on the pine, but they rallied really well. The substitutes came to the fore in the second half. Obviously, Mikola's long throws crucial, and Inglesi's first South Melbourne goal, one that he will remember for a long time to come. And then there was a lead to defend. The defence stood tall, and crucially Harvey Lopez did his job as well. A string of crucial saves to hand South Melbourne a hard-fought win. It's not the, I guess, textbook dramatic thriller that you'd expect from the final league meeting between these two sides for some time, but it's a result that shows the strength, the character, and the resolve of this South Melbourne side as they look to embark on a new era.